This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Forged? This is Steven, your host with Fantology Podcast. I have my lifelong friend Jake on, and we're talking about Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, the first Robin Hobb review that we have ever done somehow through 350 plus episodes of the podcast.
Yeah, I'm really surprised by that, especially since I know you and Ryan really like them. And I think the twins have read all at least this first trilogy, right?
Yeah, the timing was just bad. Ryan and I read them back in the early 2010s, I think, like well
Hmm.
before the podcast ever existed. And Ben and Josh, I don't know what happened, but you know what? We're here now. So
We're here now. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
we are.
And this is your first foray
My
into the
yeah,
realm of the Elderlings.
my first Robin Hobb. I had always kind of assumed Robin Hobb was a like a 2000s, 2010s maybe writer. So I was surprised to see this is older. Like this came out probably around the same time as Wheel of Time, right?
Is that true? Is it like late 90s? I'll see. Yeah, probably because I mean, since this book, she's written 15 more in this series. And she's had some other stuff that she wrote when she was earlier in her career too. She was one of the guests of honor at Dragonstone last year, and me and
Yeah.
Brandon were kind of chatting about her career, which she had a lot of kind of interesting stories and funny anecdotes over the years. It'd be fun to be like part of that whole community for your whole life.
I know. Yeah, this came out in 95. So I don't know, around the same time as Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so and I think I could sense that a little bit with the writing too. I really like the prose in this book. Her writing's really well done. And it felt older in a good way, kind of like a Wizard of Earthsea, a little bit like that kind of vibe, but obviously a
Mhm.
little more modern. But yeah,
Yeah, like Wheel of Time, it's got that like banger quote on the cover from what the Wheel of Time one is. Jordan has come to dominate the world that
yeah,
Tolkien revealed, something like
yeah,
that. And hers is in today's crowded fantasy market, Robin Hobb books are like diamonds in a sea of zircons, George R. R. Martin.
yeah. Oh, nice,
So
George.
yeah,
Big
that's
fan.
if you can get George on your cover, that's good. That's gonna sell you some books.
Deep cut from some Jake lore. I only started to read a Game of Thrones because of a Robert Jordan quote about how much he liked that series. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
full circle
They
here,
yeah, the
Blurds.
quotes are all, they know when they give the quote that,
Yeah.
they're obviously gonna get some get a little bit back too. So it's
Oh no, I mean I didn't read a Game of Thrones because of something George R. R. Martin said, but something Robert Jordan said.
right. I guess what I'm saying is
Oh,
like
okay.
they're all kind of, they know that
Yeah, yeah.
if you read a Robin Hobb book, you're
Yeah.
probably gonna also try a George R. R. Martin book at some point in your life. So
Yeah, it's a tight
help you.
community.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Full
Exactly.
circle.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
first book in Realm of the Elderlings. It's the first book in the Farseer trilogy. All the trilogies have different names.
Hmm.
So I guess like your overall thoughts, Assassin's Apprentice.
Yeah, interesting thought. Assassin's Apprentice as a title, I dislike. I
Yeah,
think
it is. Does it feel misnamed? It's
it feels misnamed. It feels like this was a publisher's attempt to sell books. It has a very like YA borderline name, in my opinion. Like this is
mm,
something you would name something to try to get all like the youths and like the
like the
angsty youths.
Rangers. Did it give you vibes of Rangers Apprentice?
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I haven't read those, but maybe in my mind that they occupy a similar space. Also, like, yes, he is uh there is a like assassin apprenticeship in this book, but it's like such a minor focus in the
Hmm.
overall scheme of things that I and like seeing that the next two are also assassin something or something assassin I that like that's off-putting, and honestly that's it also makes me think of the what's the other Brent Weeks book or series,
The Night Angel books.
which I
Yeah,
started and I thought was kind of cringe. So
those ones are very much assassin books.
yeah, like this title belongs to something like that. Whereas the book itself was much more introspective and like pensive and
Uh-huh.
um yeah, so that out of the way. Despite the
Yeah,
title,
the
I
real we
enjoyed
need to come
it.
up with the correct title, like the pensive bastard, something like that.
Yeah, you could do something like skill and wit, or
Hmm.
it could just be called like I don't know, just call it Fitz. It could be so many things. But
Hmm. Son of chivalry.
yeah. Um, but yeah, so that took me back. And but overall thoughts are really good writing. I enjoyed reading this book almost exclusively for the writing for 90% of the book. And then towards the end, I was like, oh, here's some fun plot stuff too. But throughout the book, I was never really engaged by the plot or the world building all that much. Introducing the Forged made things interesting for sure. Um, I thought the
Hmm.
wit was cool, the skill is interesting, but you just barely get your toes wet with those. So I didn't really care about the plot for the most part. And I didn't really care as much as it is like introspective and pensive from Fitz's POV. I like didn't care about him. I didn't care about like almost any of the characters. Like I felt like I was viewing all of this as like a fly on the wall, very like I felt like I was watching or looking at a just a beautiful painting of scenes, and that's what was captivating to me rather than really like feeling for Fitz so much or one way or the other, or the other characters or plot, which was like a weird experience where I don't know, like it for a big part of the book, it was like looking at a boring landscape, not boring, but just like because boring has like negative connotations, a like just a take it or leave it landscape with like amazing technique in its painting and its brushstrokes. And so I was like admiring all the brushstrokes the whole time,
Hmm.
without really like caring about what was being painted as much as like how it was painted. That's my
Okay.
that's my
Yeah,
take.
good metaphor there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
so it made
there's a
me
lot
think,
there to unpack.
yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
favorably reminiscent of Wizard of Earthsea and The Name of the Wind in terms of like story structure and writing and prose. But for whatever reason, The Name of the Wind, like I was way more sucked into Quoth as a person and like his life and struggles. But
Hmm. Like if you continue reading, which I hope you do, you gotta diagnose this a little bit more in future books. See if that ever changes for you. See if you can nail down
yeah.
why the Fitz character. Like for me, and we talked about this offline, and you said you didn't feel the same. But for me, Fitz was always just like a frustrating character. Like he's
Hmm.
just always struggling, and it's not necessarily like his fault, but there's just times where you wish he could just kind of break through and just like do the thing and like get it done and like make and he just always struggles with this to really like succeed 100%. And that's not his fault, but that's where like it's not he's not like a super competent character, which is I feel like one of the cornerstones of characters that I really latch onto.
I feel like he was pretty competent in this book, but also he didn't have as there weren't as many situations he found himself in to feel that frustration or joy at and excitement at when he does achieve things. Um, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I'll have to keep reading to
Yeah.
see how that
Or
develops.
maybe it's not even maybe it's not even the competency, it's more of just like the situations he's put in are always just a little bit too hard for him to like totally
Hmm.
succeed in. And it's not his fault. And our protagonists in these stories are always in hard situations, but they can usually do it just like a little bit better than he's able to.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, I mean, he did some pretty cool, like he definitely like exceeded expectations in this book for the most part. He had his lows, which for my interpretation and understanding of the reading was mostly due to antagonistic forces. Like, if I understand it right, Galen basically kind of put a block on him when it came to the skill, like made him like not believe in himself until
Hmm.
Verity cured him of that. So like he did have low moments, but it wasn't like he wasn't good enough as much as like um he got outmaneuvered or whatever. Um, one thing I did enjoy while not, it was literally like, I want to read a book, I'll put this on, but, and I enjoy, because I enjoyed listening to it, but it was never like, I can't wait to find out what happens next until the end. But before we get there, I think the character dynamics and relationships were interestingly developed. Burrich and Fitz, they have that really complicated, semi-abusive relationship that's like almost father, son, uncle, um, but also, yeah. And finding out, are we going full spoilers at this point?
Yeah, yeah, we'll do.
Okay,
We're
okay.
doing spoilers.
Finding out later, like that he has the wit as well. Like it makes a lot of sense why he's so hard on Fitz for it. You know, it's like that
Hmm.
self-loathing a little bit. Like you're harder on people. You can be hard on people who are failing to repress things that you try to repress in your own life. Um, and so I thought that character dynamic was really interesting and like their relationship ups and downs and how they're so loyal to each other even when they like are at the lowest in their relationships. Um, the whole bastard dynamic was interestingly developed. I feel like usually it's either you have nothing in life or you secretly are going to take the throne because you're the bastard.
Mm.
I think Game of Thrones leads towards the former on that one, and this one is kind of like in the middle, which is interesting. And it didn't feel, it would have felt more uh, cheap if it was just like, oh, and now I get to have my royal education and et cetera, et cetera. But I think that they ground it more in reality by making it clear that he is just a tool for other people, like the king or what's the
Shade?
Valor? No,
Oh,
what's
Verity?
the no, the
Regal.
other Regal for
Yeah.
Regal. You know, like he's just like this tool, and that's why he's
Hmm.
there. And so that's interesting um and
It's
how
almost like a story, like the story being told. Fitz is not really the main character. Like he
yeah,
is,
yeah,
because you're seeing it through his eyes, but he's not really the one making much happen.
yeah, he's very
It's
passive,
yeah.
which is realistic in that way. And at the end of the book, he does start to be able to take action. That's probably why, like the last act and climax is much more engaging. And
Mm.
I did want to just keep reading at that point. It reminds me a lot of Nicholas Nickleby, if you've ever read that.
I
Um,
have not.
I think it's I think it's Charles Dickens. I
Pretty sure
be
I
so
would put money on Charles
um,
Dickens.
feels very much like that, where it's like very relationship focused
Hmm.
and character focused.
Plot's kind of meandering, like you said. Do you think that helps develop the characters because you get to see them as more like, taking steps, like doing things right, doing things wrong, making mistakes, just kind of like a natural story for a lot of people. They're not really like shining a heroic light um, too much on anyone. Like no one seems overpowered. No one's Quoth who can just do everything.
Yeah, and I think it does. I I was like going back and forth while reading it, thinking how much better it could be at developing that if you had multiple POVs, but then also constraining it to a first person does add it like a special element to it. And so it's I don't know. Like I don't know why I'm comparing this to Game of Thrones at all. Like they're nothing alike, but in Game of Thrones you get a lot
I
of
probably because I primed you with
yeah,
the
yeah, you
GRM
incepted
quote.
me. You incepted me,
Yeah.
yeah. Um But like there's a lot of really good character dynamics and like the strings, the web of relationships is like a big part of the plotting and character developments in a Game of Thrones, in a Song of Ice and Fire. And but you also get multiple POVs there, which let you go to someone you hated and then start to love, or vice versa, and start to get more into other people's heads.
Mm.
Which I really like because it just expands out everything so much more. But limiting it just to Fitz's um, knowledge is an interesting constraint to the story. Um, especially like it gives you that like you're learning as he learns, but also you have he has his own biases that you don't as a reader, and so that's an interesting element to it. Um, like around Lady Patience, is that her name? His
Uh-huh.
kind of stepmom. She
Right.
was the one character that I was like actually felt for. Like when she came on the scene and she was only there for a little bit, I thought that was like very a much more compelling part of the plot. I was kind of disappointed that nothing else
Mm.
happened there in this book, so I'm hoping they
Because
explore that.
she's also kind of an outcast in court, right?
Yeah, like she was uh not their choice for who he would marry for sure. But I just her plight of like finding out I assume I can't remember the timeline, but finding out Chivalry cheated on her, maybe not. Maybe he had Fitz before they were married. And her being barren, and so like seeing him as a source of infidelity in her marriage and a source of emphasizing the her infertility. Um, and then also like a reminder that her husband is dead too. Like it was just like very perfectly set up to be this like evil stepmom kind of situation, but it
Mm.
was done more realistically and grounded to where like that like she was obviously conflicted and didn't really know how to deal with him, but like learning that she just was like, okay, we have to like legitimize him and like he needs to inherit everything, uh not necessarily the throne, but like inherit a life that chivalry would have had. And I thought that was a really interesting dynamic that is more nuanced in real to life that you don't see all the time in fantasy. Even in something like a Game of Thrones, like they would emphasize, like you have Catelyn, who has a similar
Yeah.
dynamic with
Yeah, yeah,
Jon
yeah.
Snow, and she's not like she's definitely not a villain. She's not really a great character, but that's like her character flaw is all of these negative emotions towards Jon Snow. Um, and so I feel like that's usually how it's portrayed, and this was a really interesting way where you can tell like she's trying to do the right thing and she probably really does care for him, but it's still painful to be around him, and so that's why their interactions are like very
Mm.
terse and awkward and yeah.
Maybe, I mean, one difference is in at least the first book, Ned is still alive. And so
Yeah.
there's kind of that like further awkwardness of like
And no
she's
children, no other children.
yeah, yeah. And so Catelyn, I feel like maybe she's not really angry at John as much as she's probably angry at Ned, but can't
She
really
vents it
like
at John. Yeah.
yeah, right? But without the father figure, without chivalry there, and like you also like you say, no other children, then there's not as much anger, and it's more like, I still have this like it's more of a grieving sadness that you're like trying
Yeah,
to connect with someone over. And even if this person is just like this really awkward person in your life, it's still, someone that has this connection to the same person that, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, super complicated relationship.
yeah. And that was probably the like I said, the character I most like connected to, I think, while reading it, even though she wasn't on the pages a ton. But yeah, excited to see where that goes. And then I really like the magic. The wit is just cool. I like that it's not just I can talk to animals, but it's more like an innate connection to living creatures, including
Hmm.
people. I thought that was a cool twist. Not twist, but a cool element to it. And then
Were there too much animal companion
I thought that was fun.
heartbreaking moment? I mean,
Oh, the
he
heartbreaking moments.
loses.
He goes
Yeah,
through them a lot.
yeah,
There's Nosy, there's Smithy,
and then there's
there's
Nosy again
Nosy
at the
again,
end.
and then wasn't there another one? I don't know. I feel like there are a lot, but yeah,
I mean, those two for sure were the ones you. But it was, I mean, three times you're losing
yeah,
an animal companion essentially, and yeah, that's tough.
yeah,
I know for Ryan, he's probably the biggest animal person of the Fantology
yeah.
group. That's that. I don't know if that's like the thing that got him connected to this series is like the animal companion nature of it.
I bet it's a big reason he kept reading though.
Yeah, despite the heartache,
Yeah.
that's part of, yeah.
Smithy's death was sad. Nosy's was more um triumphant,
Yeah, see that. He's an old
but
dog. He ended up living a pretty good life. Reconnects with Fitz. Like,
his other master died, you know.
yeah.
The first time you lose him though, that was pretty brutal. Um yeah. And then the skill is fun. Like you don't know a ton about it yet, but it's basically the way I'm understanding is it's basically just like your willpower and you can like dominate other people with it. But interested to see where that goes later. Yeah.
There's more to be developed there. But neither magic system is like, really all that. It's it's more soft than hard, I would say. There's
Yeah,
really not too many layers to it.
it's like it's like defined enough to be able to like uh plan and depend on it, but I think it's
Yeah.
soft in a good way to where there's lots of flexibility and uh yeah, lots of ways to implement it that
Hmm.
you wouldn't otherwise expect, but it doesn't feel
It
unearned.
feels like a 90s fantasy magic system.
Yeah,
It
it
is
does.
exactly what it is. Yeah.
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 Which, yeah, not a
Um
bad thing by any means, just a matter of how you execute it.
yeah. Other interesting character, the Fool, obviously, and I've heard of the Fitz and the
Yeah.
Fool. That's a
Yeah.
series.
Yeah,
So,
you've probably heard of these books referred to as The Fits and the Fool that
oh, is that
yeah,
not its
what
own
is
trilogy?
it is. It is.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, there are trilogy names, and then there's Realm of the Elderlings, and then there's all the book names, and a lot of the book names have the same like words as the trilogy names. Fool appears in a lot of the different anyway.
Mm.
So you were probably going into like thinking, okay, here's the Fool, like this character is especially important. What do you think you would have picked out the character as that important had you not kind of already
Oh
been primed
yeah.
to?
Yeah, the fact that
Okay.
like he's basically introduced as like maybe like developmentally delayed and then he's like full of these wisdoms and then you like that alone I'd be like okay this guy's important and then seeing that like sensitive side to him when Fitz breaks into his room. Like those were all definitely like he's an important person. He's like mysterious enough, wise enough that like I need to know more about him and if it's just him or his people or what. Um yeah, I wasn't able to decipher what his little
Hmm.
Fitz alliteration haiku meant. So maybe I need to go back and
I don't remember what the haiku is, but there is a lot to the Fool, and yeah, he very important character.
yeah.
You'll learn more, obviously.
He feels like a mix
It,
between Tyrion and Wit right now.
yeah, yeah, there are definitely some wit comparisons. Well, once you get further, maybe we could have that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool.
Other characters, just kind of a rapid fire. Your impressions on Molly?
Uh, Molly's fine, yeah. I thought there'd be more of a romantic emphasis in this book, but instead, just like everything, it's like developed so gradually in a great way that feels very like real. In the way that like the Name of the Wind really captures that like infatuation in a realistic way, but like the infatuation isn't very like real or grounded, but like you feel that in real life. I think this
Hmm.
captured the other side of that, like the very natural like development of these like feelings and relationships. Again,
Mm.
it's so much of like the characters, like you just get like it's like okay, a foundation has been laid, but no real arc has happened with them.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, that's fair.
so I'll have to see if I assume he sees her again, even though she's kind of written off at the end of this book. I think essentially
Hopefully.
how she's written off makes me think he's gonna see her again. But um other I felt I liked what's the king's name?
Shrewd.
Austere Shrewd.
Hmm.
I liked Shrewd. He was interesting.
Okay.
I thought Regal was a
Yeah,
little
your
one note.
hatred for Regal, 1 out of 10.
Um, he was just kind of like cartoonishly a villain.
That's fair.
And so like it's not like, oh man, it's not like reading about Snape, even though Snape is kind of cartoonishly villainous. He's like, yeah. Yeah, I just so maybe this is why. His whole plan, it seems like, is to become king. Like that's just what he wants.
Yeah.
There's obstacles in the way, including potentially Fitz and Verity and Shrewd. Um, but like didn't they hint that maybe he was behind like the sea attack, like the raiders? I don't know if the forged raiders, but raiders in general to destabilize the kingdom. And I'm like, I don't know. Like what is it seems like he's being
Mm.
like indicated at being just the source behind any bad thing that's happening, and I don't like piece it together in a logical way. And that's what I guess I mean by like cartoonish, where it's
Mm.
just like chivalry died, it's probably Regal.
Do you
There's like these
think
raiders, probably Regal.
that's purposely ambiguous from like Robin Hobb's doing that on purpose for the plot? Or is this like what fits as a fairly naive, confused member of the court is just going to think because Regal is a huge jerk to him?
You thinking like a Sorcerer's Stone kind of thing going on with Snape?
Oh
Or
yeah, yeah. Yeah, Sorcerer's Stone with Snape is a good comparison.
um I didn't feel like that's what was happening because in order to develop it that way, you need to have Fitz be proven wrong. Like when with Snape, when you find out that he was trying to counter charm the curse that Quirrell was putting on the broom, or
Mm.
um yeah. You don't really see that. Like you would have he would have been written in a way where it's like, oh, come on, Fitz, this clearly like this isn't what it is, you know? Or it would have been written like this is obviously what it is, and then you'd have the rug pulled out from under you. And neither one of those things happened in this book. Maybe it'll
So
continue.
since there was a lot of nefarious stuff going on with the Mountain Kingdom that we can blame Regal for, okay, you're thinking that maybe he is behind everything.
I don't know. That's kind of the vibe I got. Like anytime something bad would happen, Shade would be like, I can't say exactly, but what does your mind tell you, boy? It's like, oh, it's probably Regal. And Shade's like, but we can't act on it. And then at the end, like Verity's just like, don't do it again. Like I was like, what? He tried to kill you.
Yeah.
He killed so many people. He tried to kill you, and like you think that's enough? Like, I don't know. Do they just think Galen was the power behind him, and now that he's dead?
Mm,
I don't know.
I mean, there's definitely some interesting rules around the nobility of the kingdom. Like, chivalry has a bastard, therefore he must abdicate, and then he's just kind of gone, and he dies off in his estate. And yeah, like you say,
Yeah.
Regal, slap on the wrist.
Well, I don't think
Yeah.
Chivalry had to. I think it was just him trying to live up to his name, and that's why he
Mm,
did. I did like the irony of uh Shrewd is shrewd, but also he's oblivious to some things, it seems like. And Chivalry wasn't very chivalrous when he sired a bastard. And Regal, it may be the most dramatic irony of the fact that he wants to be king, to be Regal, but he is not, and he's doing very unregal things in order to try to achieve that. So I don't know about
mm.
Verity. I can't remember. Does he ever lie a lot? He doesn't.
Yeah, like what does verity actually mean?
I assume it means like truthful.
It turns out like not a big word in my vocabulary. Verity.
Veritas. That's what I'm thinking of.
Verity, meaning. AI says, yeah, true principle or belief, especially one of fundamental importance. Hmm. You'll have to let us know
I
if you
don't know.
see any dramatic irony there.
Yeah, but I assume like that's what they're going for, right? With and like Lady Patience did not seem very patient at
Hmm.
all. But so that was fun.
So will you keep on going with the series? I guess
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah, I
where
want to
we land here.
yeah, I'll keep on going. I want to know more about the forging, obviously. Like
Hmm.
why are they doing that? Like how are they doing that? Why are they doing that? And how does Regal play into it all, of course. Um, but I am kind of like I'm not really into the whole assassin thing. Like it's I don't know.
I think that's fair.
That's the thing that holds me back. Not yeah.
Yeah, maybe come up with your own title for the books and then
Well, not just the title, but like why does Fitz
oh,
want to why does he want to keep being an assassin? Like at first I totally get it, like gave him purpose, you know, he's like, "Oh yeah, I can be useful." But then
sure.
after everything that happens at the end of this book, like he should be like, "Wait, why should I be loyal to?" Oh, he does say like when he's loyal to the King's Man, he's a King's Man to Verity now. No, okay. That's his motivation. Okay, back
Verity's
on board.
cool.
Yeah, I like Verity.
Yeah, yeah. Verity's a solid guy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read more. I gave it a on Storygraph. Everyone should use Storygraph now. I'm trying to pitch that to everybody as an alternative to Goodreads, mostly because they have cool charts. And you can import, export your Goodreads library into it, so I don't think it's going to be a hassle. Um,
Fantology brought to you by Storygraph.
that'd be cool to work for a company like that. I gave it a 3.75 out of 5.
Oh, you can do point 0.75s
You can,
on
yeah, you can, I think
Storygraph.
you can do 0.25s increments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Already Already much better than the alternative that will not be named.
Yeah. So what is that? That's like a 8.5. Am I mathing that right? No.
Try
What?
again. Times two.
Yeah, yeah, 7.5. That's what I meant. Um, yeah, I think 7.5 is the right number. Um, maybe an 8. I don't know. 4 seems kind of high. 4 out of 5. So almost
Hmm.
there, but really good pros.
All right, we'll see where this takes you in Royal Assassin, I believe is book two.
Yeah. I'm reading Native Tongue right now, about halfway through that, and then I think I'll read Royal Assassin next. So
Sweet. And I'm finishing up Project Hail Mary, which I think you just finished. So looking
yeah,
forward to that review. That book
yeah,
just got pretty fun for me.
yeah. That's a fun one.
Sweet. All right, if you like what we're doing at Fantology, you can join our Discord and check out all of our socials and all that stuff. Support us however you'd like to. Links to do all that stuff is in the episode description below. Forged, good luck. Hope you find your souls, humanity, whatever, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.